Professor SUMIOKA's University Standard Philosophy course. Hi everyone! Last week, we learned the beginning of philosophy. Independent from revision, Thales explored the arcade of the world and took his first steps in philosophy. However, you said the world he proposed was just a hypothesis. What else was considered as arcade at the time?
Ancient Greece spanned 500 years, from the Greek conquest in the 9th century BC, to Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC. It was initially a ragtag group of small city-states, but the threat of the Great Persian Empire forced it to face the world as one. In response, philosophy also developed significantly.
It's like young people who live only in a small village go to a big city. The way of thinking would also have changed greatly.
Ancient Greece was formed through the conquest of native peoples. They lived luxurious lives and increased their population, but the areas were too mountainous to expand the cities, so some moved to different places and built new cities.
Those were so-called colonial cities.
Miletus was one such colonial city, founded on the west coast of Asia Minor. It thrived on eastern Mediterranean trade, and was influenced by Oriental monotheism. It would be the background where Thales came up with the idea of arche, around 600 BC. Although he no longer relied on mythology, he did not yet have the term for energy, so he expressed, all things are full of gods.
Without the young Greek gods, he explored reality and thought for himself.
The idea that real material has living energy is called hylozoism, alive materialism. However, Thales' water hypothesis was soon questioned. Anaximander, a disciple of the Milesian school, in the first half of the 6th century BC thought, not only water, but material in general is alive. He named it a pyrron, or an entity not yet prescribed. It can become anything, fire, air, water, or mud. However, according to him, change is not free, it has to follow the law of crime and punishment.
Namely, he thought, the whole world is alive, right? With the words crime and punishment, he would like to mean the law of fate, Moira.
Furthermore, in the middle of the 6th century BC, Anaximenes of the Milesian school proposed that the apeiron is, in fact, air or a gaseous soul. Humans and other animals live by breathing, and the world also breathes, and makes the air thick and thin, changing into fire, clouds, water, or mud.
Unlike the fatalism of Moira, breathing might move the world forever.
Also in ancient Greece, there was an Oriental belief in the Mother Earth goddess, before their conquest.
The agricultural goddess, with a large belly and many boobs. She symbolizes the productive power of the earth, so people worldwide pray for fertility.
People thought humans could also be revived after death, like plants, and prayed to the goddess for rebirth. However, some Greeks turned this worldview upside down. Do you know Orpheus?
A mythic hero who was good at music and tried to take back his dead wife from the underworld, wasn't he?
Orphism insisted that this earth is rather the underworld. It said, we were originally heavenly souls, although we are now buried on earth, trapped in rotting bodies. So we should purify our earthly bodies, to revive us as heavenly souls.
But how?
At first, it was just a common cult that hated real life. However, Pythagoras reformed it into a positive religion in the first half of the 6th century BC.
Was it that famous mathematician?
He was actually a religious leader, and his mathematics was their way to purify their souls. According to him, the world is made of numerical harmony, and by thinking of it only in numbers, we can be independent of our bodies.
They would have thought mathematics makes them avoid illusions and misunderstandings.
Pythagoras founded his religious order on the west coast of Asia Minor. Still, they harshly criticized the world's people as unclean, and were particularly at odds with the Mother Earth goddess believers. So they were expelled, and migrated to southern Italy, where they established their own religious city-states.
They seemed troublesome.
The Greeks lived easily, within their small city-states. However, the Persian Empire expanded, and threatened Asia Minor. Therefore, following the Pythagoreans, many West Coast Greeks were also forced to flee to the far west, southern Italy.
The Greeks, who had invaded the natives, now found themselves the ones being invaded.
Foreign folks' appearance and immigration to the West made them realize the big world. At the end of the 6th century BC, Xenophanes also immigrated to Elia in southern Italy, and he expressed the world with the word hen kai pan, namely, one and all. He also said, everything is full of gods. It means, the world is the very God. The thought is called after that, pantheism.
He would like to say that the world itself has energy for changing, as Arche.
In contrast, Heraclitus around 500 BC, dared to stay in Asia Minor, and found that, although the world exists as ever, it has completely changed. He described that, no one steps in the same river twice, symbolizing that with the word, pantare, or everything flows. However, also influenced by the Pythagoreans, he thought that, even if the world is an eternal fire, it would keep its identity, by palantropos harmonia, or flipping harmony like a harp string.
Aha, remaining and changing are logically contradictory, but they would be originally ambivalent like a duck rabbit.
In the first half of the 5th century BC, the Persian Wars began at last. Parmenides of the Eleatic school expressed the nature of the world in a complex poem. According to it, we are confined to here now, the center of Sphirar Eowu, or the ball of existence. Although we can see only the changes of here now, everything has already been determined far away, like falling sands in an hourglass.
It may be what fate is. We ask about the causes after an incident occurs, but the causes should have happened somewhere before.
However, history sometimes produces surprising results. The Persians thought they could easily conquer the Greeks by crushing the small city-states one by one, but the war made the Greeks unify and fight against them all together. And the Greeks won the giant Persian Empire.
Oh, that's amazing!
In the middle of the 5th century BC, led by Athens, the Greeks pooled their money and power to prepare for the Persian attack again. Many human resources were also gathered, so Athens reached unprecedented prosperity. They realized the ideal of a free citizen, and the theater and architecture developed dramatically. It was called the Pericles Age.
That is the glory of ancient Greece that we know so well, right?
Anaxagoras was also one of the people who immigrated to Athens from Asia Minor and contributed to its cultural prosperity with Pericles. According to him, the world was made up of a mixture of spermata or seeds, and panta or everything in everything, although a thing shows the nature contained most in it. However, a certain sperma named nous or intelligence discerns them, and separates each into homogeneities, establishing the world order.
It might be an analogy of democracy in Athens. He would think diversity breeds prosperity.
However, Athens' prosperity was based on the exploitation of unified Greece. This caused a backlash against Athens, and neighboring countries began to defect. On the far western island of Sicily, Empedocles, a contemporary of Anaxagoras, was pessimistic about this international situation. Like the Eleatic school, he also thought of one world ball, but he said, it has 4 different rhizomata, or roots: air, fire, water, and mud. By those, the world is involved in the trouble of philia and neokos, namely love and hate, so it repeats unifying and dividing, forever.
Good and bad are always two sides of the same coin. World peace seems like nothing more than a pipe dream.